court to weigh in on Mississippi abortion ban intended to challenge Roe v. Wade.
A lieutenant colonel of Space Force was fired for speaking out against CRT, critical race theory, and Marxism. How did that happen?
Twitter faces legal action on Massachusetts court.
This is the Wei and Kathy show. Welcome to our program.
Welcome.
Okay, let's get right into the first piece of news, which has to do with a Mississippi abortion case, abortion ban. So, Kathy, what's going on there?
Yeah, so today the Supreme Court decided that they will review this case. It's called Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. So it sets the stage for a major ruling next year on abortion, one that could upend the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Roe v. Wade and the Planned Parenthood versus Casey, in which the court ruled that the Constitution protects the right to have an abortion before the fetus becomes available, which occurs at around 24 weeks of pregnancy. So the background of the Mississippi case is that the Mississippi legislature passed a law in 2018 which bars abortion after the 15th week of pregnancy, and with limited exceptions. So in the state, the only licensed abortion provider, which is Jackson Women's Health Organization, went to the court and challenged the state's law and constitutionality and blocked the state from enforcing it. Then a federal district court agreed with the clinic, and the reasoning that the Supreme Court's case do not allow states to ban abortion before a fetus becomes viable. Then the case went to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit upheld that decision. So the state went to the Supreme Court, asking the justice to rule on whether all bans on pre-viability abortions are unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court justice announced today that they will take up this question presented in the state's petition, which is whether all pre-viable bans on elective abortion violate the Constitution. Yeah, so Wei, how do you think of this case?
Yeah, it's indeed, because it's very, very important matter here, because this is the first time, not first time, this is one of the major times that the Supreme Court is taking such a case which could impact Roe v. Wade. As you know, that Supreme Court received about 7,000 cases every year. Mm-hmm. They only take 100. Okay, it's a very small portion. So now they decide to take it. So typically, the rule of thumb is if they got 4, it's called a gain of 4, right? If 4 Supreme Court justices decide to take that course, they take that course, and I'm saying in that case, they take that case. So it will be very, very big indicator. So just about 1 year ago, the Supreme Court actually struck down a Louisiana law that requires doctors who perform abortions to have the right to admit patients at a nearby hospital. So that supposedly is some type of limitation, restriction on just performing abortion freely. Okay, but in that case, the Ginsburg was one of the justice who ruled with the other 4 people. They got a slight majority, 5-4, mm-hmm. right? And this time, Ginsburg is changed to Barrett, Amy Coney Barrett. So it's going to be very, very interesting when next year when they vote on it. It's going to be next year, right?
Yeah, it's after the it's in the fall actually.
In the fall.
Yeah,
in the
after
fall,
the summer
year.
break.
Yeah, it'll be pretty fast. Okay. Mm-hmm. So. How to say? I think there's 2 things to. First, I want to ask our audience: what do you think? What do you think they could vote? Now we got Ginsburg passed away. We got a Barrett in the Supreme Court, so supposedly it's like a 5-4 or 6-3, and we know the voting record of John Roberts, the Chief Justice. So it would be 5-4 by so-called common sense. Would that common sense be common sense? Would that common sense be happening? Yeah, what do you think? I just curious about how you would think about that, and type your thought about how the Supreme Court will act if Barrett follow through, because I think she's a Catholic, right? Roman Catholic. And there's enough many Roman Catholic in the Supreme Court. If they follow through with what they believe is right, I think they would, they would overturn this case, this abortion, this abortion law.
Yeah, based on her own personal opinion on abortion, because when she was in the process of the Senate hearing, right? Yeah, her stance on the abortion was actually criticized.
Yeah. Right. But if that happened, it's going to trigger something big. Okay, that would be big, backlash from there, possibly directly triggering the pack in the court by the, by the Congress. They could rush a bill to pack the court, turn this 9-justice court into a 13 or even more. Okay, so it's a matter of principles. Do they dare to do it? Do they dare to do it? The conservative justices who don't believe in this abortion right, will they do it? And I think at the end of last year, they dare not to do what is right. And this time, would they do it? I don't know. I used not to have that doubt, but
Judy,
now I do.
Yeah, Judy said, "I pray conservative value will rule."
And Dick Ticos, you said Roberts will vote for whatever the majority is, so he can write the ruling. It's possible. But of course, we all know that we want our justice stick to their principle. Even the principle is not, whether it's a liberal or conservative, they should stick with their own principles. And unfortunately, we are not seeing that they do that. And the Constitution guarantee that they have lifetime job. They should not be threatened or swayed or intimidated by anyone. They should just do their job. Constitution did this best to give them the power and the privilege and the leeway to do what is right. I don't know. They didn't do it before. I don't know what would happen this time. Well, watch that closely. It's not very far. Just a few months later, they're gonna make the ruling, and we'll see how this few, especially those new justices, how they live up to their job.
DM said they're not going to be overturned. There's a question actually from Ryan. He said, "My question. Thank you for your work." Yeah, you're welcome, Ryan. And his question is, do you think the CCP is aware of your media platform? Do you experience any backlash if it's true?
Yeah. So, we'll see.
Do you want to answer
I'm
Ryan's
sorry,
question?
I'm sorry. I was reading your comment.
Okay. Yeah, Ryan is asking, do you think CCP is aware of our media platform, and do you experience any backlash if it's true?
Oh yeah, they are.
Of
course,
right?
they got they got the map, which they have every media channel that criticize them. Okay, and do I experience backlash from them? Not in the obvious way, but on the YouTube, we could going through some shadow ban. We don't know how that was linked to it. We don't know what's behind it. And
yeah, but it's obvious. During the weekend, I sent, we've been this, having a lot of comments on that.
Yeah.
And also during the weekend, I replied the emails to our donors, which we truly appreciate. And quite a few of them replied immediately back and saying that I don't see your channel anymore, and I have to, really look for it to see if you have new videos.
Yeah.
So the shadow ban is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't know if there's an obvious link between the CCP, but the CCP, they would not like any media which would report true and real news, and they just do different things, trying to insert their influence.
Okay, so Yeah, let's move on to the next piece of news.
All right. Yeah, so Air Force Lieutenant Colonel was fired after he did some, promoted his new book in a couple of podcasts.
So before heading into it, let's give some context. As you know, President Trump established this Space Force, right, which is another military branch of the U.S. And then the head of the Space Operations Command is Air Force Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting, and he just fired this Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lomere. Yeah, Lomere. And his post is commander of 11th Space Warning Squadron, based in Buckley Air Force Base. Okay, so he's quite a leader, a military leader, officer, and he was just removed. And the reason?
Yeah, the reason is he wrote a new book, and he got interviews by a few podcast hosts. He talked about his book. So what is his book's name? You can see that, right? So the name is Irresistible Revolution: Marxism's Goal of Conquest and Unmaking of the American Military. So let's first give a little bit more introduction of Lieutenant Colonel Lomere. He graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2006, spent over 14 years in the Air Force, including he was the pilot training flying instructor. He also flied the F-15C Eagle. Yeah. Then, last year in October 2020, he was transferred to the Space Force. And remember, in November, the following month, the then President Donald Trump called Lomere and other members of the Space Force for their first Thanksgiving. Yeah, because it's newly established. And early in May, he published this book. And then subsequently, he got some interviews. So during one of the podcast interviews, he said that the beginning chapters of his book explores the history and the foundation of the United States and how critical race theory is actually played a role. And he believes this critical race theory is rooted in Marxism. And he said the diversity, inclusion, and the equity industry and the trainings we are receiving in the military is rooted in critical race theory, which is rooted in Marxism. And he believed that this should be a warning sign. Lomere also spoke about the U.S. institutions, including like universities, media, and the federal agencies, including the military, that he said are increasingly adopting leftist practice. And he said that these practices, such as diversity, inclusion training, are the systematic cause for the divisive climate across America today. But he explained that his book is not political and is meant to alert readers to the increasing politicizing of today's armed force, some of which he said he seen or experienced personally. And from his perspective as a commander, Lomere said he did not seek to criticize any particular senior leaders or public identified troops in the book, but rather he focused on the policies service members now have to adhere to align with the certain agendas that he said, quote unquote, that are now affecting our culture. And in another interview, Lomere said that all my interaction with the senior leaders in the Air Force, in the Space Force, has been very positive. However, he felt that the leaders may be afraid if they don't go on board with the diversity training, they will face scrutiny or might not get promoted. And he said that the liberal ideas are welcomed there, but the ideas from the more conservative voice are criticized or silenced. That's how he felt. And he also advised any new service members to reject critical race training. And because he said it is actually a form of extremist by the definition outlined in Department of Defense instruction, which says handling dissident and protest activities among members of the armed forces. So because of his, his speech with the podcast on Friday, May 14th, Lumiere was relieved from his post by the Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting, who is the head of the Space Operation Command. Because it's Air Force, a Space Force spokesperson told military.com in an email saying that this decision was based on the public comments made by Lieutenant Colonel Lumiere in a recent podcast. So they admit that. So the Lieutenant General Whiting has initiated an investigation into him to see if these comments constitute prohibited partisan political activity.
Okay. So the Lieutenant Colonel is partisan in the eyes of his superior. And let's analyze that a little bit. Let's just roll back the time, okay? Roll back the time and just to find out what is really the origin of this critical race theory. Okay, back in early 1914. Okay, in 1914, there's this young boy, 9-year-old. His name is called Felix Weil. Felix Weil. He was born in Argentina. Okay, and he was a son of a very wealthy grain merchant. Okay, so his father is wealthy, so he can afford sending this young boy to a school in Germany at the age of 9. All right, the boy grew up in Germany and attended the University of Frankfurt. All right, and then later he graduated with a doctoral degree in political science. And at that time, he was become interested in socialism and Marxism. Marxism. In 1923, he financed a special event. It's called the First Marxist Work Week, and then in the German town of Immeno. And then later, his father gave him another major endowment, money basically. So he founded the Institute for Social Research in 1924, and then this institution is attached to the Goethe University in Frankfurt. All right. So who did he invite to be the dean of this institute? His name is Karl Grunberg. Karl Grunberg is a Marxist professor of law at the University of Vienna. Actually, he was widely regarded as the founder of the Austrian Marxist branch, Marxism branch. So, and this person over there in this very institute, because the Institute for Social Research founded this theory called the critical theory. There's no race yet. Critical theory. And what is critical theory? It basically tried to develop the Marxism in the 20th century, because Marxist, he passed away, he died, several decades earlier. And with the new industrial age coming, they feel that, the original theory is not good enough, it's not complete enough. So they try to develop the Marxist philosophy, and by providing a framework of critiques of the modernity, and the capitalist society. They basically try to, basically just critical of the capitalist society. So so this is how that Institute for Social Research come about. So in 1993, Nazi Germany, forces closure. So this institute moved into the United States and found a home at Columbia University in New York City. So then that's how this called the Frankfurt Society is, one society at that institute.
Okay.
How that migrate to the United States. It took root and start to branch out and grow a a group of a series of scholars, scholars who developed this critical theory. Then later in the mid 1970s, this critical race theory was founded by, through the writing of several American legal scholars. And it kept developing in the 1980s and it became a movement. Basically, it argues that the social problems are influenced and created more by society structure and the cultural assumptions than by individual and psychological factors. Well, it's just too hard to understand that. So basically, it says, 2 points. The white supremacy exists and maintain power through the law. So it's ingrained into the law, into our society. And the second, transforming the relationship between law and the racial power, and also achieving racial emancipation and the subordination more broadly are possible. Basically said that white supremacy is there, it's always there, so we need to counter, change that through counterforce. So basically, just again, it redefines. When I read this, I feel really wow. It says it redefines human history as a struggle between the oppressors and the oppressed. This is exactly the Marxism's, their theory of reduction of the entire history to a struggle between the, oppressors and the oppressed. Right?
Yeah.
In China, it manifested into like farmers and landowners. Landowners, they're oppressors, they're always evil. As long as you own a piece of land, you are evil.
Yeah, and the workers and entrepreneurs. And the workers are always oppressed by the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so critical race theory came from critical theory, and the critical theory came from Frankfurt Society. And the Frankfurt Society came from that institution, which was exactly founded by the, Marxist scholar and a Marxist, funder.
Yeah. So what did Lieutenant Colonel Lumiere said wrong?
Yeah. So basically, this is very, very partisan. I mean, the CRT is very, very partisan, and he's saying that we should not promote that. He meant to say we should make it non-partisan.
Yeah.
Because he's pushing back that partisan, now he's labeled as partisan.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he said. He said, my intent never has been to engage in partisan politics. I have written a book about a particular political ideology, which is Marxism, in the hope that our Defense Department might return to be politically nonpartisan in the future, as it has honorably done throughout the history. So, but obviously, the leaders, some of the leaders in the space, in the unit doesn't feel that way. So actually, his book is ranked number 2 under Amazon's military policy section this week. Yeah, and so actually, several prominent Republican lawmakers. They showed their support behind the Lieutenant Colonel Lumiere, like Republican Representative Dan Crenshaw from Texas. He himself was a former Navy SEAL, and he said the military needs to prepare service members for combat, and told social media users not to let this story slip away. Yeah, and the other representative, Byron Donald from Florida, he said actually he regarded Lumiere as a hero for both his military service to America and defending the rights of the leftist mob, as he's quoted, trying to cancel him. He said a critical race theory should have no place in our classroom, armed force, or country as a whole. And Representative Andy Biggs from Arizona, he also echoed his sentiment of Lumiere as a hero, and saying that writing the U.S. military should be prepared to win battles, not being brainwashed with Marxist ideas.
Yeah, so actually at this particular time, I think essentially what I read is some sort of purging, right? Purging. Yeah, this lieutenant colonel from the Space Force. And for him, I think it does take courage to speak out. And he's a courageous man. no doubt about it. I think whatever happened, whatever happened to him or to whoever, if people who know the truth still remain, how to say, positive and keep speaking out, I think then that was the best thing that that can happen.
More representatives spoke out. I think that's the way it should go. People just should speak out their minds.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about we go to the next piece of news? It's
Okay.
Regarding Twitter. Twitter will be on court actually this week. So the federal judge,
Oh, by the way, Twinkly, 1974 said, gonna find his book. Find his book. It's interesting. I was just ordering before the program. I'm very curious because the title is very interesting, right? When you read this title, it says, let me see, what does it say? It's
Irresistible Revolution.
In our military. Our military is respected
So
by people of this country. They are apolitical. They are very courageous. They guard our border and they secure actually not just this country. They also secure the world in a certain sense. And whatever happened to our military, of course, many people are interested. I am. So I haven't finished the payment part, but I will be doing that right after this show. I want to read that book and hopefully I can report it to you. But in the meantime, if you want to buy that book, I definitely say go for it. Yeah.
All right. So you probably still remember Dr. Shiva. Right, Dr. Shiva, he became, very well known after the election. He produced some analysis.
This is MIT professor.
Right, the MIT professor. Yeah, he produced analysis to the data, especially in the state of Michigan. Remember that? So, but himself actually ran for Massachusetts state, actually U.S. Senate. Although he didn't win. But he actually, now have a big case on the court. What happened was that in September last year, Dr. Shiva exposed and shared the evidence to his nearly 40,000 Twitter followers, which are the screenshots of 4 emails from the Massachusetts Secretary of State office. He alleged them that they violated the federal law by deleting ballot images because, according to the federal law, the ballot information which is related to a federal election should be preserved for at least 22 months. So then he found evidence that the Secretary of State in Massachusetts strongly encouraged Twitter using the government's quote-unquote trusted Twitter partnership to first silence Dr. Shiva's account for hours, for days, and eventually just permanently have him suspended. So Dr. Shiva filed a lawsuit immediately, asking for a preliminary injunction against the state government's because he was still running for office and needed his Twitter account to communicate with his supporters. And then on October 30th, 2020, federal judge Mark Wolf awarded Dr. Shiva all the terms of the preliminary injunction and ordered the government and the other defendants to stop silencing Dr. Shiva on Twitter. And Judge Wolf also declared that Dr. Shiva would likely prevail on his claim that the government of Massachusetts made Twitter to silence him. And that's according to Dr. Shiva's opinion. But on February 1st, 2021, this year, Twitter deplatformed Dr. Shiva. And on May 10th, the same judge, Judge Wolf, issued an order for Twitter to testify in court on the 20th this month to explain why Twitter should not be made a co-defendant. Obviously, Twitter tried to get off from the case, and also asked them whether the government was responsible for the February 1st deplatforming of Dr. Shiva. Also, on the May 13th, Judge Wolf issued a new order seeking amicus brief from the supporters of the First Amendment. So it's very interesting. And because he said this case goes to the heart of which this country was founded to protect freedom of speech, especially the political speech. So here we go on May, and 3 days later, there will be this hearing of the case, and it can be watched on Zoom. And it's very interesting that Dr. Shiva is representing himself. Yeah.
Okay. I need to correct myself. He's not He's not a MIT professor. He's a PhD. He got his PhD from MIT, and that's him. And then so what do you think? The First Amendment is actually it's for me, as a foreign-born American. I only realized later that First Amendment is for how to say, is regarding the government. Government cannot take away our right to freedom of speech. Not another person, right? If I visit a neighbor and I say something he doesn't like, he kick me out. I cannot say, it's my First Amendment right. And because he has his First Amendment right, which including not want to hear my word, not allow my word in his house. This is how Twitter was able to ban President Trump and Dr. Shiva and a number of conservatives, right? But if their ban is not their private will, it is from a government officials, then that's precisely, unconstitutional. They violate the First Amendment. That will change it for a big deal. So if Dr. Shiva would have this, if he has this evidence, I think that changed the entire landscape. Yeah, it will be very, very interesting to see what would happen, because I think Twitter will lose if Dr. Shiva has enough evidence. And so it's a case we definitely will be following through and report it back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's almost like it's close to June 4th. We know what happened in China and back in 1989. And truly in China, there's no freedom of expression, freedom of speech.
Yeah, so next piece of news that we want to share with you is in June 4th of 1989, the PLA, People's Liberation Army, they roll their tanks onto the street of Beijing and shoot their way through until they reach the Tiananmen Square. And so many people died. And then on the following year, on the same day of the following year, 1990, in Hong Kong, at Victoria Park, the Hong Kongese, it's called the Zhilianhui. Zhilianhui is what? It's like a support and the connection association of Hong Kong. They set up this Victoria Park candlelight event on that night. And from then on that first night, on that very night, 200,000 people show up. Then every year on this same day for 31 years, okay? And they persisted. They set up this candlelight vigil there, and every year 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 people, they keep showing up. And because Hong Kong was free, so that rally, that candlelight vigil become a symbol for people to remember. Yeah, take a look. Remember what happened on Tiananmen Square. Unfortunately, as of this year, out of the 17 key members, leaders of that association, 11 of them are already in prison or will be in prison. Only 6 of them, remain, free. And
10 of them are on trial today.
So, they may not even be able to put on anything. They cannot find enough leaders today to do that again. So this the 31-year tradition will be broken. And then those leaders who are in jail or will be sentenced, they said they will be commemorating June 4th in the prison. So this is what came to me, okay? Because they were there, right? They were there in that Victoria Park to commemorate, to hold the vigil for the Beijing students, for the students in Beijing who were massacred. And then now they're still doing that even in the Hong Kong prison. In a certain sense, some people should hold a candlelight vigil for them, for those Hong Kongese now.
Yeah, and one of them just, before going on court, saying that he just urged people, whether it's for the June 4th or whichever occasion, he just urged Hong Kongers to continue to speak out. And I think his word is really to everybody. When you are able to speak out, you have to speak out. And even for them, they will do something if they are jailed. Even that.
So so it's just but as CCP so-called smoothly took over Hong Kong because they have guns, they have a propaganda machine, and they have power. They subdued Hong Kong, but they can never wipe out, take away the will of Hong Kong people. And through all this, I think the whole world see the true nature of the CCP. Actually, is the true nature of any communism. Back in 1997, they make a solemn international treaty when they took back Hong Kong. They said the political system in Hong Kong will remain independent and free for 50 years until 2047. They signed that up. That's how the UK, they sign out and they back out of Hong Kong. And then only after 23 years, they completely just destroy that treaty, and then just in such an outright way. So the CCP is clearly speaking out to everybody in this world. My word doesn't count. And that has been true for 100 years. By the way, this is the 100-year anniversary of the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. Their word doesn't count. Never believing anything they say. That's a proven record. But unfortunately, because they have power, they wipe out, they change the textbook, they just wipe out history, rewrite history, and the young people, they don't know. They grew up, they don't know. Many young people don't even know this is a tank man.
Yeah, actually, Billman Michael said, I remember the guy who stood down the tank.
Yeah, you do, because you are in the US. But many young people in China, they say, what? They don't even know the word of the June 4th.
Actually, just locally, we have a student from Tiananmen Square at that time. He was run over by the tank, actually.
Lost his
legs.
2 legs.
But this courageous man now, he fortunately he was able to escape to the United States, and thanks to the United States, and he's still fighting for the freedom of the people in China. So maybe this time we can invite. We've been interviewed him for many times in our Chinese shows, and so maybe we can invite him. To talk about that.
Yeah, actually, over the weekend I read this the Animal Farm. I don't know how many of you read that. If you do, can you just type it there, or even you heard about it? I'm just curious. I never wanted to read that book because after 1991, I thought communism is over. They are doomed. They'll be disappearing sooner or later, and I never thought I have any need to go back to that book. And in 1984, I also read that part. So this guy is, of course, author, right? George Orwell. George Orwell. When he was young, he really believed in communism to such extent that he went to Spain, fight this Spain war against against the Nazis, right? Franco, and he was one of the member of this called international columns. He stayed there for less than 3 years, which completely dashed his dream about communism, his fantasy about communism. He came to realize what type of a beast, what a kind of communism it is. But they disguise themselves so well that they can just fool a lot of people. And then, so they are still alive. Communism, they're still alive. They're creeping out of, deep water. And then now they are trying to control our military and control many areas of our life in our country. So we shall be very, very vigilant about that and be clear-headed. That's also why we do this program. And Twinkly, you said I just bought Animal Farm in 1984. Oh, it is really scary to read in 1984. What is something that really struck me the most? I'm probably I'm deviating from today's news. I just ended that very soon. George Orwell wrote the book and published it in 1943. To me, who lived through Chinese communism, he basically predicted a lot of things that happened after 1943. Unbelievable, simply unbelievable. I don't know how this guy can see through all those. He only have 3 years experience dealing with the communism in Spain. That 3 years is enough to help him not only see through, the communism, and also for the decades later, what would happen decades later.
Yeah, he almost predicted how the communists would be working in like countries like China and North Korea. Yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah,
and Twinkly was asking, I wonder why our media just loved the CCP lines.
Why our
like
media? You mean mainstream media?
Mainstream media.
Yeah. Why? So today.
Money talks.
Yeah, money talks. As this May 13 is called the World Falun Dafa Day. Okay, Falun Dafa is a meditation exercises which was started in China, then which was in 1992, which was persecuted in 1999. Through the last 22 years, tens of millions of people, literally tens of millions of people were thrown into labor camp. And tens of thousands of people were tortured to death. The cruelty is actually way more than what happened in Xinjiang. But you don't quite read about that in the newspaper in the last 22 years. Okay, now actually you probably read enough about what happened in Xinjiang to the Uyghurs. But you don't read enough about this Falun Gong, the persecution against Falun Gong. Why? Because our mainstream media were bought. Falun Gong is definitely a red line that CCP doesn't want them to touch.
Yeah, actually,
they buy them out. They just buy them out.
Not even buy out. Also, they threaten them. Remember when the persecution first started? Actually, maybe close a dozen Falun Gong practitioners in China. They risked their life to hold a international press conference. Remember, it's like in 1999 when the persecution just started. And actually, at that time, quite a few international reporters covered the event, including like AP and the CNN, and whoever has stationed in Beijing at that time. However, once they reported on that press conference, actually quite a few of them, I remember at least the AP correspondent was fired because the CCP government just give pressure to those media outlets saying, if you cover Falun Gong, then you have to be out of China. You cannot cover anything from here. So just combining with the pressure and with the money, they just successfully bought out those mainstream media, most of them, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I think we should always, pursue truth, and we need upright media. Yeah, that's why we're making the effort, and and we will continue from here, and until we really recover the honor of media. It's a shame. Media has lost its honor and any honor it has, and now, but we are trying to recover that. And with your help, I do have faith, confidence in the future. Okay, thank you very much.
All
and the ending joke, how about this? Yeah, last time, yes, indeed, very corny joke. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so what do you bring us today?
Well, try this way. This is about Chinese military, because we'll talk about Lieutenant Colonel, right? So let's talk about Chinese military. I was actually in the Chinese military for about 2 months. This is a special training when I was in college, because we went out, we protest government. Government thought those young people, we need to discipline them. No, they lock us up in a military camp to receive a military training for 2 months. Okay, so basically, over there, you get up, they blow some called a wake up trumpet.
Okay.
Very loud. And like at 5:30, and you have to wake up, you have to go out, you have to run, and things like that. And as a young man, you don't want to do that. I'm very sleepy. Okay, so finally, finally, this soldier persists long enough to the, not a retirement, right? It's like a 复员. What is 复员? Like
recovery?
No, 复员军人.
Oh, veteran.
Yeah, he became a veteran, right? He was qualified to retire from the military. Okay, so before he retired, he was very carefully recording with a tape recorder, right? The wake up trumpet, okay? And then, so his sergeant was very curious. So why do you do this? He said, because when I go home, I'm gonna play this wake up trumpet every morning by my bed.
Okay.
Wow, the sergeant was really impressed. Wow, you love our military. You even want to, when you go back home every morning, you still want to, wake up to, play this trumpet so that it can get up on time and carry on with your new life, right?
They're so immersed into the military life.
Impressive.
Okay.
So military change people, right? We all know military really train and change people. And the soldier said, no, you got me wrong, okay? I'm gonna recording the sound of the trumpet. I'm gonna place by my place every morning at 5:30. And no matter how many times it plays, I will never ever get up. And that's my revenge.
Oh, he had enough.
Okay, hopefully
he got changed after all.
Oh, by the way, let me talk about the American story, military story. In the American story, if you join the military, they sell you insurance. Okay, if you are a American, military serviceman, don't interfere. Okay, let me tell my story. All right. Okay, so they still have to sell you the insurance, life insurance.
Oh.
Right. So it's not easy. Okay, because you're always suspicious about those life insurance salesmen. Right.
Right.
What kind of trick do you have? But there's one agent who's so successful, sell a lot of things, a lot of the policies to the new soldiers. And to such extent that his colleagues were just really puzzled. How could you be so successful? We can only sell 1 or 2 a day. You can sell 20 a day. How did you do that? Okay, of course he kept his mouth shut until when he got home and his wife was asking, I got a call from your colleagues. They're saying that you are outrageously more successful. And what's your trick? He said it's very, very simple. It's so simple, right? They sell him like $50,000. I sell him $500,000, and I just talk to the ear of the soldier. Just think about that. When you buy such a expensive life insurance, when the war happened, how to say, what type of soldier they were sent to the front line? The one with the 50,000 or $500,000? So you're very safe. Please. Okay, hopefully
that's a trick.
Yeah, I try to squeeze some tricks just to end the show in a light note. Okay. Anyway, thank you for watching us. Please press the like. I know, yeah, you have all done that, and make sure you unsubscribe and resubscribe. Hopefully, the notification will reach you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, and please.
I don't know how to pronounce that. Thank you for your donation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you always support us. Thank you very much. And also, we do have a donation link at the end of the program, and in the description. If you donate there, it will save some dollar, and YouTube won't get it. Anyway, so thank you for supporting us very much. We will build a new type of media, recover the honor of the media. That's what we're doing, one day at a time. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.